June 18, 1815. A battlefield near a small village in Belgium. Smoke hangs low over the ground. Cannons have gone silent. And what remains is not chaos, but realization. For years, Europe had watched one man win. Again, and again, and again. Armies larger than his had fallen. Coalitions formed to stop him and collapsed. He moved faster. He struck harder. And somehow, he always found a way to win. But here at Battle of Waterloo, that pattern ended. Not slowly, not over time. In a single day, everything changed. The man who had reshaped Europe, who had risen from almost nothing, who had taken control of nations, was now defeated. And the most shocking part, just 10 years earlier, he had been unstoppable. To understand how this happened, you have to go back, not to power, but to a position far from it. Napoleon Bonaparte was not born into the French elite. He was born in 1769 on the island of Corsica, a territory that had only recently come under French control. To many in mainland France, Corsica was distant, different, not central to power. And neither was he. He entered military school young, but even there, he stood apart. Different accent, different background, limited connections. In a system where rank and advancement were often influenced by status, he had very little advantage. But history shifted. In 1789, the French Revolution began. The monarchy collapsed. The old system of power broke apart. Positions opened. Authority became unstable. And in that instability, opportunity appeared. Where others saw chaos, Napoleon saw movement. He advanced not because the system supported him, but because the system no longer controlled who could rise. And for the first time, being an outsider was no longer a weakness. Napoleon's first real breakthrough came in 1793, during the Siege of Toulon. At the time, the city was under opposing control, supported by foreign forces. It was a critical position, and retaking it required more than just numbers. It required coordination. Napoleon, then a young artillery officer, identified a weakness. Instead of focusing on direct confrontation, he positioned artillery in a way that targeted key defensive points. This forced the opposing forces into a position they could not hold. Toulon fell, and with it Napoleon's name began to spread. But this was only the beginning. In 1796, he was given command of the Army of Italy. This army was not the strongest. It lacked resources. It lacked stability. And many did not expect it to succeed. But Napoleon moved differently. Instead of waiting, he attacked. Instead of facing entire forces, he divided them. He moved quickly, faster than his opponents could react. Battle after battle, the same pattern appeaed. That rapid movement, that concentrated strikes, isolated enemy forces. Victories followed. Lodi, Arcole, Rivoli. These were not random wins. They were consistent. And consistency changes perception. At first, he was a promising officer. Now, it was becoming something else. A commander who didn't just win, but who changed how battles were fought. And by the end of the Italian campaign, one thing was clear. This was not luck. This was a pattern. After the Italian campaign, Napoleon Bonaparte was no longer just a successful commander. He had become a pattern of victory, not a one-time success, not a lucky general, but someone whose presence changed how wars were planned. In Europe, military leaders began adjusting their strategies before he even arrived. That alone says everything. Because now, the fear wasn't just what he did. It was what they believed he would do. He continued campaigns across Europe with the same core principles: speed, focus, disruption. Instead of engaging in long, predictable battles, he broke structure. He separated enemy forces before they could unite. He forced decisions before preparation. He removed time from the enemy's side. And without time, even strong armies become vulnerable. Victory after victory reinforced his position. But something subtle was happening underneath the surface. Every win strengthened belief. Every belief increased boldness. And every bold decision made risk feel smaller. This is how momentum transforms psychology. At first, decisions are calculated. Then they become confident. Then they become instinctive. And eventually, they become unquestioned. Napoleon was entering that final stage, where winning was no longer something to pursue. It was something expected, and expectation is dangerous because it removes hesitation, and hesitation is what keeps power balanced. But at this stage, balance was already shifting. By 1799, France itself was unstable again. Governments changed rapidly. Authority was fragmented. No system held firmly in place. In that instability, military success became political influence, and influence became power. Napoleon returned to France not as a soldier, but as a solution. He was seen as someone who could stabilize chaos. Through a political transition, he became first consul. But this was only the beginning of consolidation. Authority became centralized. Decisions passed through fewer hands, and gradually, control tightened around a single figure. In 1804, he declared himself emperor. This moment marked a complete transformation, not just in title, but in structure. France was no longer led by shifting councils or fragile systems. It was directed from a single center of command, from battlefield commander to ruler of a nation, and from there, influence expanded outward. Europe was no longer dealing with a general. It was dealing with a state shaped around one mind. This is where power becomes different, because now, every decision, military or political, flows from the same source. And when that source is consistent, systems become efficient, but also more dependent. Everything now relied on continued success, because failure would no longer be just a setback. It would be a collapse of structure itself. At his peak, Europe was reshaped. Coalitions formed against him repeatedly, and repeatedly failed. One of the most decisive victories came at Battle of Austerlitz. Here, Napoleon faced combined Austrian and Russian forces. On paper, the opposition had advantages in size and coordination. But Napoleon did not fight on paper, he fought on timing. He allowed the enemy to believe weakness existed. He positioned his forces to draw them forward, and when they committed, he struck the center. The result was decisive. The coalition collapsed. This victory reinforced a belief that had been building for years, that his system of war worked everywhere. But this belief created a shift, because when a system works repeatedly, it begins to feel universal. And when something feels universal, it begins to be applied beyond its limits. One of the most important decisions came later: the Continental System, a large-scale attempt to restrict trade with Britain. The goal was not battlefield victory, but economic pressure. However, enforcing this system required cooperation across multiple regions. Not all regions complied equally. Resistance increased quietly at first, then structurally. This created strain across the empire. And then came the most critical decision: the invasion of Russia in 1812. At first, the campaign moved forward, but distance changed everything. Supply lines stretched further than before. Communication slowed. Coordination weakened. The Russian strategy avoided direct confrontation, instead withdrawing deeper into territory. This forced longer movement into harsher conditions. Then came environmental collapse. Winter arrived, and with it, the system that had worked so efficiently before began to fail. Not because of one battle, but because of accumulation. That distance, supply, weather, exhaustion. By the time retreat began, the army had already been fundamentally weakened. This was the turning point, because for the first time in years, the pattern broke. Victory did not follow. After the Russian campaign, the balance of Europe shifted. Coalitions reformed. But this time, they were stronger. They had studied the system. They had adapted. And more importantly, they had time. Napoleon no longer had continuous momentum. Defeats began to appear in regions where victories had once been predictable. Pressure increased from multiple directions simultaneously. Military strain combined with political instability. Control began to weaken. And once control weakens in multiple places at once, that collapse accelerates. Eventually, Napoleon was forced to abdicate. He was exiled. But even that did not end the story. He returned, briefly, attempting to restore what had been lost. But the final confrontation came at Battle of Waterloo. This time, conditions were different. Opposition was coordinated. Timing was controlled against him. And the system he once dominated no longer responded the same way. The result was final. He was defeated, and after years of dominance, removed from power permanently. But what makes this story powerful is not just the rise, not just the peak, but the fact that it all felt inevitable while it was happening, and impossible after it ended.